All right, ladies, so let's talk about Act 4, Scene 1. Now, this is the witches' last appearance on stage. It's their big moment to shine. And this is the witches' scene. I mean, they are definitely driving the action here. This scene is very famous for the line, double, double, toil and trouble, fire, burn, and cauldron bubble. And of course, even if you didn't know that came from Macbeth, you probably have seen it in one of the feast scenes that the choir sings in Harry Potter. So if you're recognizing that line, that might be where it's from. So when we look at this scene from The Witches, they open the scene, and we have to remember Shakespeare's audience and how they would have viewed this. They would have been over the moon excited to see the witches back. Remember, they love gore, and they love anything disgusting and kind of crazy, and they just love that stuff. They love the witches. And this is also a time that Shakespeare gets to kind of show off some of the new special effect features that the Globe Theatre has. So one of the main features of the scene is that the witches, they've got this cauldron that they're dancing around, and they're throwing in, the eye of the newt and the toe of the frog and the finger of a birth-strangled babe. I mean, really disgusting stuff. And then when Macbeth comes on stage, there's going to be 3 visions that rise from the cauldron. And this really would have been an opportunity to show off some of these new special effects features that the Globe had. There would have been a trap door under the cauldron, and, something would have risen from it, and people would have, that would have blown their minds. It just would have been like, oh my God, how did they do that? So this is a big scene for that as well, but it's largely for entertainment. So if you're in your books, okay, we would really skip, if you were here, we would skip almost all the way from line 1 really until, oh gosh, like line 45. There's just nothing that happens of any importance, okay, until then. So as you're watching, and I expect that you'll go and you'll watch the film version after you watch this, it's really not until the second witch, our drooly witch, says, by the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes, that we want to start paying attention. Because as soon as she says that, something wicked this way comes, Macbeth enters the stage. Now, girls, how evil do you have to be for a witch to be calling you wicked? That's insane, right? So Macbeth, we now know, is so wicked that even the witches are recognizing this, right? They're kind of recognizing this monster that they have created, so to speak. And so when Macbeth enters, he enters with this very authoritative and commanding tone. He demands of the witches, how now, you secret black and midnight hags? What is it you do? And then he goes on and he's like, I want to know more. Answer me, I conjure you. Answer me to what I ask. He's just very, very authoritative. He acts extremely superior to them. And we understand why. He's the king now. And he feels that he can be superior to them. He's superior over all of mankind, so why wouldn't he be superior over them as well? And they've really created this. Right? And when we look in our own world today, this was something that we talked about in class, when we look at our own world today, why is it that we have so many people in positions of power that feel that they can get away with things? Politicians who have scandals in their personal lives, or celebrities that go off the deep end. Justin Bieber, I'm looking at you. Why do they feel that they can do that? Well, because we kind of tell them that they can. We tell them you're invincible. Nothing that you do is ever wrong. And when you build that up, this is eventually what happens. Okay, so this is where it begins to get a little weird. All right, it's certainly in the film version, but in the play as well. So, so the witches say, "Speak, demand, will answer," and then they say if thou hadst hear it from our mouths or from our masters. So, in other words, do you want to hear these predictions? We'll just tell you, or do you want us to call the spirits that we work for, that are in charge of us, and they can give you these predictions? And Macbeth says, call them. Okay, so he wants to hear it from top dog. He wants to hear it from the actual spirits that are out there. Now, as it's written in your book, this is when they stand around the cauldron, and these apparitions, these visions, rise up from the cauldron. Okay, and they speak to Macbeth, they actually talk to him. Now, in the film version that you will watch, it's even weirder. So they make him drink from the cauldron, which is really disgusting. And then it's kind of like he's like in this weird trance, right? Like he's hallucinating in some way. And when he's like completely out of his mind, the witches take these dolls. Now, I happen to think the dolls are creepy. And they wave them in front of his face and are like, "Ooh, here's an apparition." And because he's hallucinating, he thinks it's actually a vision. And so what happens then is that then the dolls begin to speak to him. It's weird. It's totally weird, but they're witches. They're supposed to be weird, right? Now you've got your handout, okay, that talks to you about the three visions and what these three visions say. Okay, so the first vision appears. And the first vision, its appearance, its physical description, what does it look like? Our stage directions tell us is that it's an armed head. Now, I have to admit to you that when I was a sophomore reading this play and I heard that it was an armed head, I very definitely pictured just a head with two arms coming out the sides. And actually had that vision in mind for longer than I would like to admit. But an armed head is actually one that is just wearing armor. Okay, so it's like ready for battle. And the armed head says to Macbeth, okay, right in line 71, Macbeth, 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 beware Macduff, beware the Thane of Fife, dismiss me enough. Okay, so the Thane of Fife, that's Macduff's title, just as, you know, we've heard that Macbeth was the Thane of Glamis and the Thane of Cawdor. And so the vision is telling him to beware Macduff, and Macbeth responds with, "Thou hast harped my fear aright. But one word more." And so basically Macbeth's reaction here is just, "Oh, you confirmed it," right? Like, I was already suspicious of Macduff. You confirmed it. Thank you so much for doing that. Okay. Then the second apparition appears. And the physical description of the second apparition is that it's a bloody child. Yikes. So it's a bloody child. And it says to Macbeth, "Macbeth, Macbeth, Macbeth, be bloody, bold, and resolute. Laugh to scorn the power of man, for none of woman born can harm Macbeth." Now think that through. None of woman born can harm Macbeth. So essentially, nobody who was born from a woman can harm him. I mean, that's feeling pretty good about this, right? Because, you know, that's kind of our thing as women. We give life to the entire human race. So he's sitting here thinking, and he says in line 82, "Then live, Macduff. What need I fear of thee? But yet I'll make assurance double sure and take a bond of fate." So he's like, "Oh, nobody can kill me. I don't have anything to worry about, but I'd already planned to kill Macduff anyway. Hate to let that go to waste. We'll just do it anyway." Okay, so he's still going to kill Macduff even though he's been assured he feels invincible, nothing's ever going to happen to me. And then the third apparition appears. And the third apparition is a child crowned with a tree in his hand. And this apparition says, and we're actually going to jump to line 92, okay? And this apparition says, "Macbeth shall never vanquished be, till great Birnam wood to high Dunsinane hill shall come against him." And so essentially what they're saying is that, you know, you will never be defeated until all of the trees in Birnam Wood come to Dunsinane Hill where you live. Macbeth's feeling great. I mean, like, trees can't walk. I mean, that's like saying that, you know, Sacred Heart's never going to lose another game until every tree out in Seneca Park uproots itself and plants itself again on the Ursuline campus. He's feeling awesome right now. Woohoo! Nothing can hurt me. And he says that, right? He says that will never be. He's feeling great. Okay, he's feeling absolutely wonderful. But then he asks one more question. Okay, and he goes, and we're in line 101, and he asks the witches one more question. "Tell me if your art can tell so much. Will Banquo's issue ever reign in this kingdom?" Will Banquo's children ever be king, right? Remember, he's still worried about that prediction from Act 1. And the witches respond with, "Seek to know no more." Saying, you don't want to know this answer. It's not going to be one that you like. You don't want to know this. But he presses and he presses. And finally they say, "Fine, show." And what he sees then, and if you go right after line 110, they even say, "Show his eyes and grieve his heart, come like shadows, so depart." And then we see a show of 8 kings, and Banquo last, with a giant glass in his hand. And what that means is that not only are Banquo's sons going to be king, but they're going to be the start of a long line of kings. And obviously, this is not what Macbeth wanted to hear, right? This is not what he wanted to hear, because what's the use of being king if he can't, set a legacy? What will he have done all of these things for if his name won't be remembered, if his line won't continue? So this very much troubles Macbeth. And then the witches vanish. Poof, into thin air. They're gone. And suddenly some nobles come upon Macbeth. He's out in this field. He's been talking to air, it seems. Nobody's seen the witches except for Macbeth. And so if you go to line 136, Macbeth says, "Saw you the weird sisters?" And everybody's like, no, we didn't see anything. Okay. And then we're told in line 142 that Macduff is fled to England. And we know that Malcolm is in England. And so we can assume that he has gone to England to get Malcolm and bring him back to fight against Macbeth. And so Macbeth decides in line 146, "From this moment the very firstlings of my heart shall be the firstlings of my hand. And even now to crown my thoughts with acts, be it thought and done. The castle of Macduff I will surprise, seize upon Fife, give to the edge of the sword his wife, his babes, and all unfortunate souls that trace him in his line." And so he decides, based on what the witches have told him, and based on this new act of going to find Malcolm, that he's going to attack Macduff's castle. When it is defenseless, because Macduff isn't there, he's going to attack Macduff's castle and kill everyone inside. And so that is where we end with Act 4, Scene 1. Watch it, and I think you'll find it weird and creepy and kind of fantastic all at the same time.